Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where I talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about The Dinner Table Detective Season 1, Episode 5. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So we're immediately picking up with the conclusion of the previous case. And Reiko is asking Kageyama, like, obviously picking up with the whole elevator shoe conversation, and kind of says, like, right, we have to go back to that mascot's testimony that the mascot was knocked down and getting back up, so they assume the woman's height was this, but it's like, well, they could actually be anywhere between 140 and 160, so, that has to also be considered. But then bringing up the whole fact is that Shinichi, the victim, ended up wearing elevator shoes, and once again, the whole notion of it's the woman that was with him that the mascot saw and the woman leaving his apartment were the same woman. So, and then also the notion of it's the killer wore the shoes as they were leaving, and so this all kind of, I still, even with that, I wasn't clear if they were suggesting that they were trying to, I think it was just trying to hide your identity. I don't know they were aware of the third person in all of this who would have been around that height of who they were pretending to be. So I don't think that was intentional. I think that was just like an accident, but it's just kind of like, it was more so for the purposes of you weren't trying to frame anyone. You were more so just trying to hide your own identity. But either way, I was right, but also wrong. I said the second person, which I messed up because I didn't really catch all the names, but her name's Kane. I might be butchering it, but I believe it's Kane. She is, in fact, the killer, but she didn't work alone. So it's basically the first and second girl. The second girl was the one who actually did it, but the first girl and the second girl planned it together. So it's Aya and Kane. Because it's like, obviously the evidence would make you immediately think it's either it's Aya or the third girl was named like Chizuru, I believe. They are the ones who have easy access to pesticides. Now, but the third person, it couldn't be her because she blatantly was like, yo, like, oh, here I am, like, did not hide the fact is that she like sold pesticides and had access to them. Like, why do that if you were trying to hide that? Whereas like Aya kind of hid the fact, it got brought up indirectly, but it's like she has like a guarded, so she would have access to pesticides. Was kind of the whole conversation. So, but yeah, they ended up confronting Aya first because actually she was about to like be so overwhelmed by this because like the cops were closing in because they went to question her and stuff, and I think she got nervous and like couldn't probably live with herself with everything that went down and tried to kill herself, sadly. But then they end up confronting Kane about it, and we find out, honestly, Shinichi was a douchebag. He was an asshole. Like, did he deserve to die? No. But it turns out he was a douche. Like, he convinced Kane, like, there's this house, and we're going to put a down payment on it. So, like, we're going to move in together, and we're going to get married. But he didn't have the money for it, so he was actually going to get her to cover it. And she's like, no, I'll do it. But then, like, he didn't respond. He ghosted her. And so it's not till she went to eventually like meet up with him at like that place, at his place, and ended up running into Aya, and then they exchanged information because at first they thought they were getting scammed, but then they find out, oh, he was dating us. In fact, the money he was claiming he was going to use as a down payment for the house that they were going to stay in, him and Kane, it turns out he was actually going to do it to get that surgery to make himself taller. I was like, wow, you are a piece of shit. I mean, once again, it's that human thing of being insecure and your insecurity kind of driving so much of your, like, once again, when you're insecure and you want to rectify that, you want to be confident for someone. Hey, I get that as a person with the least confidence in the world. I mean, I also don't have, like, I have other insecurities. Height's not one of my insecurities, but I can understand wanting to rectify that. I mean, even if I was on the shorter side, I would never want to, it's easy to say that as someone who's like over 6 feet. So it's easy to kind of say this now, but like, I would never want to do the surgery considering like it's mega painful. Like, no. I'd assume just with the knowledge of the process they go through to make you taller, it's just like, yeah, that's just not worth it. But it's like, yeah, like this guy sucked and they concocted this plan to kill him, obviously. And when she was with him, he was drunk And he was running his mouth off, being like, because she sees him without the shoes on, and it's like, oh, and he's like, oh, like if you knew I was shorter, you wouldn't have been with me, because women would only want to be with a tall guy. And it's like, yeah, he was being driven by his insecurities. It's like that probably would have never mattered to her. Yes, it will matter to some people, like people, and humans can be human. I don't think it's always. I mean, yes, it can be looked at as a negative thing, like, oh, you get caught up on superficial stuff. I mean, it is what it is. Like, humans, we can be superficial in so many ways and capacities. So I'm not going to judge someone being like, yeah, height's a requirement for me. It's like, okay, there's plenty of people who fall in that category, people who don't. It is what it is. But yeah, they got rid of his clothes. They stole all his clothes because he took his pants off just for the purposes of, washing them, but got rid of like his pants and his shirt and left him just in his underwear, because that way you wouldn't notice. I didn't really understand like the notion of that, because I was like, are you wearing his clothes to hide your identity or what? But it's like, no, you took everything else to hide the fact that you took his shoes. Because if it was just his shoes taken, you're like, why would take his shoes? That would make it such an important part of the investigation. So you took it away just to be like, yeah, we took his clothes, so it's not seen as anything special. So, and it's heartbreaking too, because Kane, the money she got that she was going to use as a down payment on her house was given by her mom, because her mom is sick and she'd always taken care of her mom. And it's like her mom wanted to give her back to her. It's like, you be with Shinichi, Mr. Nozaki, I believe was his last name, but like, you have a happy life, you deserve that. And that money her mom gave her, was going to go down as a down payment, and this piece of shit did what he did, and he sucked. And as Kageyama brings it up, like the Napoleon complex, it makes you selfish because of your insecurities. And it's like, Reiko's like, yeah, I mean, I get it. You have your insecurity, but she's like, it doesn't give you the right to use people the way he did. And she's like, it's sucky that Aya and Kane didn't go to the cops first. It's kind of similar to the second case. I mean, in the regards of that was just kind of like a sad. If things had been said, you could have avoided the whole like murder in the second case. This case is like, if those two had gone to the cops about like the fraud situation that was going on, they wouldn't even been led to murder. But it's like they were both so angry. Specifically, Kane was, and it was even though it was thought out, it was still kind of derived from a crime of passion. It's just kind of like, it's very heartbreaking that the situation played out the way it did. But at the very least, they were able to save Aya's life. It's like she might be going to prison, but at the very least, she's alive and, she can serve her time. Obviously, Kane will probably will definitely serve more time, because she's actually the one that killed him. But it's still like the conspiracy to commit murder, will still be on Aya's jacket. So, but she won't be serving as much time. So just kind of another sad ending to it. Once again, Kageyama's words of, yeah, you want to probably eat before you solve the murder, because it's not always going to have a satisfying ending. It's just kind of a sad situation. Once again, Shinichi was not a great dude, did not deserve to die, but, he was kind of, he created the situation he was in, stringing people along for his own selfish desires of like, oh, I'm going to fix my height thing, and I'm going to manipulate women thinking like, oh, this is real love and stuff. But it was like, because I was wondering if like the motive for it was going to be like a misunderstanding on their part. It's like, no, we clearly saw it for what it was and who he was. Which is so interesting too, because like the whole element about him being cheap last episode, I guess he was trying to save up as much money as he could for the surgery. So I guess that's why he was kind of mega cheap. But either way. So that's where things stand in that episode. And then we jump into our next case revolving a VTuber, which I immediately thought was so interesting, because I was like, wait, really? Because I knew this, like, the novels this is based on were like written over like a decade ago, and I looked it up to confirm it. The original novels came out as 3 volumes over the course from like 2010 to 2012. Obviously, like, I looked it up too, because I was like, there's another series labeled on the Wikipedia page, but I wasn't sure. It's a sequel series that came out like a couple years ago. Like 2 volumes a couple years ago. But either way, my point for bringing that up is like, oh, it's dealing with VTubers. So I was like, is this because I don't know how much of a case by case is like, is this a case directly from the novel that they're adapting. I'm also curious, like, could it be like from the sequel novel that they're adapting, or did they take certain elements from a case from the original novel and then they're just adapting it with a VTuber spin to it or something like that? Those were the thoughts that crossed my mind, because these could be like, some of these cases could just be just for just straight up for the anime, and some could be just, straight adapted from the novels. I mean, because I'm also curious to watch the live action TV show from like 2011, like, because even then the novel wasn't even done, especially once again, like a couple years ago they made a sequel to it. So I'm making a whole point of just like, it sent me down a VTuber rabbit hole, because then I was like, who's the first ever VTuber? Looked it up. Technically speaking, it's Ami Yamato. And the moment I saw that name and picture, I was like, I remember Ami. I was like, that's crazy. I wonder if they still making content on YouTube. Most recent video was from like 3 weeks ago. There was one prior to that was from like 9 months ago, but so not as much. But then like the one who's considered modern starter of VTubers, I don't remember the name off the top of my head, but it's a AI created VTuber. Like someone programmed a VTuber, like back in like 2016. And if it's, I don't remember the name, but I think I'm familiar with the VTuber. I'm like I said, I'm going into a massive diatribe, but my point is, like, I'm tangentially, like, I have tangential knowledge of the VTubing world, because like I'm still a novice at it, but like I watch VTubers like through like clips and shorts and highlights on YouTube. So there's quite a few VTubers I know, like, or I'm more familiar with, like their brand and their personalities and whatnot. I'm sorry I went on this whole diatribe, but I just thought that was so fascinating, because I've just seen, there was like something else I was watching recently that had like a VTuber, and I'm sure that it's become a lot more prominent as years have gone by. I'm sure it's popped up more and more in like manga and anime and stuff like that. But yeah, like I said, putting my tangent aside, sorry. We get introduced to Kurokuro-chan, who is a VTuber, but she talks about like a certain pouch she had that's gone missing, but her friend's like, oh, have you cleaned up your room? She's like, no, I haven't found it. It's like a memento of my mom. And then someone left a donation being like, oh, like, did you get your, like, basically it was like a food delivery service. And it's like, wait, how do you know where the hell I live? And then it's a guy that was dropping it off. We find out that's the victim this episode. His name is Yuma Kobayashi, and it looks like a suicide, like he jumped off the bridge to land in front of the train and got hit. But it's like, would he really be delivering food if that was the case? Then they go to his apartment. He's got all this Kurokuro-chan stuff, so obviously a major fan, but also a stalker, and left a note. Obviously, someone else could have written that. So Kishiro, doing his flip-floppiness, is immediately like, yo, it's a suicide. And then Reiko's like, but would you be delivering food? Wait, Reiko, it's not a suicide. I think it's a homicide. It's like, okay, cool, buddy. But the only reason why they know anything about Kurokuro-chan, because at first I think like, oh, this is a cartoon character. It's actually Kageyama that fills them in about everything, which I even love. Reiko's like, wait, this is work? Obviously, I even love like, oh, he had to make the parallel about like how they make donations and stuff as work. And she's like, oh, is it almost like buying a handshake at a rock show when you're buying a CD? And he's just like, yeah, sure, if you want to make that parallel, sure, that's a close enough parallel. But even I was like, why is Kageyama a fan? And even Reiko asked him, he's like, the reason I know this is because the talent agency she belongs to is a subsidiary of Reiko's family's company. I was like, oh, interesting. And he's like, as your butler, I need to know all this type of stuff. But I'm also like, is that a long-winded excuse to be like, yes, I know because I actually am a fan? I mean, we saw you kind of busting it down and playing the villain role last episode for that like that Sentai sort of performance at the beginning of the last episode. So it's like, it's not like that's way out of pocket to be like, you're just a VTuber fan. That's okay. Nothing wrong with that. It's just I think it might be both. It might be like, yo, I'm just doing my job, and doing my job, I found out about Kuro-chan, but then it's like, well, I stuck around just being a fan, but it also is for the sake of my work. And I love Reiko. It's just like, okay. It just kind of kept it moving. So, but it points out like the whole like, right, her pouch was missing, and that might have been the thing, because it was found on Kobayashi's body. So they ultimately end up going to talk to her manager, was it Makami, who immediately was kind of like, "Oh, you're trying to suspect Kurokuro-chan?" And it's like, "Nope." Like, I love Kishiro like bowing out and just kind of getting nervous. I also really love Reiko's like motivation to like, no, we need to make sure like this case is solved properly, because if it keeps being a suicide, Kishiro is going to use this as an opportunity to be like, oh, I guess we can knock off of Earth work quickly and let's go hang out and stuff. And it's like Reiko wants to evade that as long as possible, as much as possible. So I thought it was also that interesting thing of like, right, Makami was like, do not expose my like our clients like, identity and stuff. Like, they prefer the anonymity. And then Kishiro was being a douchebag. I'm like, oh, is it really that big of a deal? And it's like, well, it is. I mean, it's a very important deal. Once again, it is a very thing of like, obviously there's quite a few VTubers who do like to keep their private life private. It's kind of very interesting twist to the whole celebrity of it all. Just fascinating culture in its own right. Like I said, I'm a novice on the outside, but I still find the whole like thing very, very interesting and fascinating. Because we find out that Kurokuro-chan, she is also a singer too, so she ended up having to deal because I think she had to take a break for like 2 months because of her voice. But it turns out the victim Kobayashi was also a singer too, but like he was going to have to go through a surgery that his doctor was like, you cannot be a singer anymore afterwards. So that's most likely how they met each other. It is interesting because it's probably like it's the typical like, you pay attention with enough details. There's plenty of VTubers that don't augment or hide their voice. They might play into character and their voice might change a little bit. For the most part, they're just talking to themselves on streams and stuff. So if you manage to be around, I would recommend not doing this. Don't be a creepy asshole. But it's like, yeah, you probably like, if a VTuber has a distinctive enough voice and you are creepy and stalkery enough, once again, do not be a creepo, do not be a stalker. But like, you could pick up on it. So it's most likely when they went to the hospital, she's a singer, she's here, you probably hear her voice and you're like, oh my god, that's Kurokuro-chan, especially if you're a big enough fan and you're kind of obsessive like this guy is. And what I'm saying, like, you're able to piece those details together. So, but when they try to go to Kurokuro-chan's place, like, she's not answering the door. And then like they talked to a lady that lives in the building, and she saw like part of the altercation, like him in the doorway. She thought it was a lover's quarrel, and then could hear like, yo, get away. And he's like, oh, I got it for you, like, take this. Like, I guess he was trying to give it back to her at that time, but she was so freaked out, so it's like, leave me alone. So unclear. Like, obviously we're still like early stages of the investigation, so I get the feeling like this might be like episode 3, where like all of episode, was it, yeah, I believe all of episode 3 involved around the second case. Like, the conclusion of the second case was like, took up all of episode 2. So I get the feeling like this might be that case, because we're still so early in the investigation and we haven't really even begun picking up like a suspect, because I doubt Kurokuro-chan had anything to do with that. I mean, could have, but it could have been an accident. Not unless it's like, the only other character we've met in this investigation is, like I said, I believe it's Makami, like the manager. So not unless she had something involved with this, trying to protect her client, but it could have been Kurokuro-chan, but I don't think so. So I'm interested to see where all this ends up taking us. Like, I don't really even have an idea right now, like, other than like the 2 characters in the investigation that aren't the victim that we've been introduced to. Like, I don't think it could be either one of them, but it still could be. So, because I'm sure a lot of it's going to initially lead to probably Kurokuro-chan, that she had like, maybe she was dealing with the stalker and it was just kind of a self-defense thing, which could be what it is in the long run. But I think it's probably going to initially seem like that, but it's like, there's definitely going to be something more to that case. So we'll ultimately have to wait to see where all of this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. To the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.